This is an untitled drawing by Richard Diebenkorn of a seated female figure in a chair wearing a patterned dress. It was made with a variety of inks, Conte crayon and charcoal, and the artist has used the charcoal and crayon to sort of lay out the figure in a sort of sketchy way and really use the inks to fill out her dress, the beautiful patterned dress, and the chair behind her. Diebenkorn is an artist who was very experimental and innovative. He was someone who was always sort of pushing the boundaries and changing his style, changing his palette. Interestingly, he started his mature career as an abstract artist and had a very successful career painting in an abstract manner. And then in 1955, sort of out of the blue, he decided to start to paint figuratively, which was quite surprising, I think, for his colleagues and I think his dealers and his family. But it really was something for him that allowed him to sort of move in a different direction. And then he made some of the most beautiful figural works, landscapes, still lives. And that lasted for about 12 years. Then the remainder of his career, he went back to abstraction. You know, one of the things that makes him so interesting for the BMA in particular is his connection to Henri Matisse. Diebenkorn is an artist that I find interesting because he was so open about the influences of artists of the previous generation. Some people want to just be, you know, geniuses of their own, but I think for Diebenkorn he was very open about seeing particular artists, whether it be Edward Hopper or Pierre Bonnard, but in particular Henri Matisse was someone that he himself mentioned several times. We know he first saw Matisse's work as a college student. He was at Stanford University in California. One of his professors very kindly invited him to go to Sarah Stein's home. Sarah Stein was the sister-in-law of Gertrude Stein, who was one of the first collectors of Matisse's work in the first decades of the 20th century. And Diebenkorn had this amazing experience to see not only works by Matisse, but Cézanne and Picasso in this very intimate environment. And it really got him very, very excited. And a couple years later, he was stationed on the East Coast during World War II, and he spent his free time going to museums in Washington, Philadelphia, and New York, and trying to see as many works by Matisse as he could. His first really intense exposure to Matisse took place in 1952 when there was a large retrospective in Los Angeles, and there you could see dozens of work at the same time. And after that point, you could start to see in his paintings a little bit of Matisse's influence starting to come in. The lightening of palette. He was still working in a very abstract manner at that time, but you could see a little bit of that influence, and it just only built as his career went on. As the curator of European painting and sculpture, I love the idea of being able to take an American artist and put him in a different context. You know, Diebenkorn is someone that I think is so interesting because he was so experimental. He was always pushing the boundaries, was never satisfied with one style. Every time he moved from locations, his style would change, the palette would change, the sense of light and color would change. And I think that's quite similar to Matisse. So I think there's some similarities in the way they worked and the way they used drawing as a way to work out problems they were having with their paintings, that drawing was always something easier and it gave them freedom. And I think this picture is filled with freedom and experimentation and love of media. You know, the way the ink is so fluid and elegant, and the way he's sort of taken the drier media and mixed it with the more liquid media, making a fantastically beautiful drawing.